Marchand beats Pelosi. Off the wall to Harris. Harris has got Pelosi. Harris to Pelosi. Shot. He scores! Chris Pelosi!
And Poitras trying to drive in on that right wing side. Poitras in. Scores! Matt Poitras in overtime.
Ellis took it right off his stick. Sends one through. They score! First career goal for the Bruins draft pick, Ellis. Back to the blue line. Cowan has it, looking for the return feed. Cowan lets it go back to the point. Shot!
Those were without all of their World Junior guys for that against Simon Fraser. BC played him Sunday. Good pass ahead. There's Yelvik. He scores! Didn't need an exhibition.
Will come up with it. Rochefort flips it out to center. Now McKinney gets chased with Harrison. Harrison to the backhand. Score! A deft touch.
Watch out. Nelson steals. Walks in. Scores! 6-2. Jackson Nelson has the hat trick.
Crosby in line. Madula wins that back. Now he's going to waltz it.
Welcome in to another episode of the Dom.Hockey podcast. I am your host, Chris Nosek, joined by the one and only Dom Bomb Dropper himself, Dominic Tiano. Dom, it's a Tuesday, not a Monday, as we normally would do the show. How you doing on this Tuesday? Happy birthday again. I know I mentioned that to you yesterday, but again, happy birthday. How was it?
Thank you. It was great. I've been retiling my kitchen, as you know. My neighbor come over and says, there's new material on the market that makes this job a lot simpler. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the Italians have been doing it like this for 2,000 years and it's still standing, and I'm Italian, so I'm going by the tried and true method. I believe I messaged you that yesterday.
Yes, you did.
I will be grouting in the next couple of days, and I hate grouting. So anybody who is good at grouting tile, I don't pay much. In fact, I expect you to pay me for the privilege of doing it. Just let me know.
I was going to say, you will pay by telling stories of hockey days while they do the work. That's your payment.
Yeah, I got lots of stories.
Entertainment. Oh, I know you do. I absolutely know you do. Shout out. Go ahead.
We should tell everybody that this is normally the Prospects show. Obviously, with the news dropping today, we're going in a different direction. But back to your shout out to.
I was going to shout out. We got Matrix in the comments already. Bear Force 1. Kevin's already in the comments. All of them commenting on your birthday. So I just wanted to shout them out real quick. Hopefully, we get a lot of comments today, as you mentioned. Normally, the prospect show, we will talk prospects. They are going to come up. But you mentioned it, the big news, the bomb drop earlier today. Head coach, Court's now in the chat as well. Head coach Jim Montgomery relieved of his duties from the Boston Bruins. Dom, what is your immediate reaction?
Not surprised. You knew this was inevitable with the way the season started out, but there were flags at the start of the season when Sweeney said they were having contract negotiations with Montgomery. They promoted Joe Sacco to associate coach. The contract extension never came. It obviously never came up in media conversations since then. So I don't know why
Yeah.
anybody would be surprised by this.
Yeah. I don't. Surprised is not the right adjective. I would say disappointed. I'm a little disappointed because I scapegoat is a little bit of a strong term because he was part of the problem. I don't see him as being part of the solution either. It's not. I mean, until we see what they do long term for the coaching position, right now it just feels like change for the sake of change. I've been told that, and this ironically wasn't from you, different source actually. I've been told that with Sacco, they're going to focus on the defensive structure more to try to solidify that and kind of bring that back to the foundational what we're used to. Just remains to be seen if they're going to be able to accomplish that. Really,
Well, Sacco is a very good coach in that department. He knows how to lock it down. And, is this team worse than last year? I don't think it is, not on paper.
I was
I I just think the way that Montgomery wanted to play, it just doesn't suit them. And
yeah.
did
I meant. Oh, go ahead.
did he lose the room? I feel that judging by the response of the players during games, I would think, yeah, he lost the room.
Yeah. Someone had mentioned this team not being good enough, and really all I could think back to was coming into the season how I want to say it was pretty unilaterally across the board. Almost everyone was talking about how this team on paper was better than last year's team. So I just, if the team is better on paper, but they're taking this kind of step back, at what point do you look at the coaching and whether or not he's lost the room? And he clearly lost key voices in the room. Whether he lost the entire room or not, I don't think it's fair to say, but he definitely lost key voices within the locker room.
Somebody posted this stat. This is real interesting. Since about the midway point of last season, they're a 500 hockey club. I didn't look it up to verify it. The team overachieved last year thanks to Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. We know that. I don't know how anybody can deny that. Look, I've said it on here many a times. To me, Montgomery should have been fired after the collapse 2 seasons ago. People always say to me when I got in Montgomery's case, this is a Neely and Sweeney issue. They've got to go, blah, 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 blah. You never call them out. That's bullshit. I've been on the fire Neely wagon since 2011 or 2012. I was vocal against hiring Don Sweeney from the beginning. Very vocal, very against it. Now we'll see what Charlie Jacobs is made of, because if this team falters now going forward and is as bad as they have been, management needs to go. It wasn't a coaching problem.
Yeah. Give me 1 second here. Court, I just saw your comment here, so we will have an unplanned guest here. But we'll have some fun here. Kevin jumping in, saying on paper, yes, they're better, but it comes down to intangibles, chemistry. Can they find it? So far, it doesn't look that way. Let's see. I can't see this one. It's blocked out. With you. Let's see. George says, well, 2 coaches gone. How much of this is on the players? We'll have to see. I really think I really think this is what will tell us how much is on the players. If Montgomery was coming in and not being a part of the culture that they wanted to have and was there before, then and Monty was the problem, then if you've peeled back the layers and gotten rid of them. So Bobby Bruschi from Primetime points out back-to-back postseasons were a 3-1 series lead, which was blown, and had him wanting Monty out after last year.
Yeah, back to the question about the players, how much is on the players? That remains to be seen, because the players were obviously playing for a coach to get fired. That's what it looked like.
Real quick, Dom, I'm going to bring on an unexpected but yet awesome and exciting guest to have on. Everyone, welcome from the comments, Mr. Court Lalonde. Court. Mr. Diehards, Bruins, how are you?
What's
I'm
up,
good, boys.
buddy?
How are you? You can hear me,
Good.
right? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got you.
All right. Hold on. Do I even need these? Yeah. No, I don't. Okay. That comes right through. That's even better.
Well, you don't want to
Awesome.
hear me anyway.
Well, I don't want to hear my own voice, to be totally honest with you, but I was well, Dom and I were talking earlier today, and I was just and Chris, actually, I was talking to you too when it was just the trying to confirm the news that was about to happen today, but I think it was inevitable. I think that's the word I would like to use, inevitable.
Yeah. Even when I was talking to someone else. Go ahead, Dom.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, even when I was talking to someone else about it, the person who I was mentioning before, they were telling me it's not yet there, but it certainly seems like it. And then 2 hours later, the team puts it out. It's like, they just wanted to break it themselves and didn't want to be beat to it.
Well, I said to Dom, I think it was last week, Dom. Remember when I said we saw him behind the B? Cam Neely was at the game in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Neely is not going on the road just for fun. Yes, Don Sweeney was there because of the whole Team Canada thing. Cam Neely was there because that would have been 3 games in a row. He was there that if they lost to St. Louis that night, Montgomery was being fired.
And it begs the question, okay, this is not similar to the Cassidy situation at all, because Bruce got a vote of confidence from Don Sweeney at the end of the season. And then, of course, we've talked about it many times, that Cam Neely forced his hand, Sweeney's hand.
I've also been told there were a number of significant players who played roles in that too.
Not as many as you think. If you want, I can tell you exactly who and everything about it. But I'm just telling you, half those things that you hear in the media are total bullcrap.
This wasn't public knowledge. We'll compare notes after.
Yeah, I don't even care anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't work for the team anymore. I can say what I want.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Doesn't matter.
If you care to
Jake
share.
DeBrusk. I don't care. It was Jake DeBrusk, Jack Studnicka, Frank Vetrano. 2 of the guys weren't even there. Trent Frederick, and that was it. The whole David Krejci thing, that's not a thing. It's never been a thing. Patrice Bergeron, they still talk to this day. They were friends. Brad Marchand, that was the funniest one that someone told me. I was like, oh my God, their kids hung out together, for God's sakes. And then David Pastrnak, the one that literally always talks about how he owes most of his career to Butch, but supposedly he hated Butch. It's the most asinine stuff. But that's what happens. Watch what happens in the next couple of days in Bruins media. I sent Dom a text this morning when Fluto did his article saying that pretty much that changes were coming. I was like, well, the Boston Bruins have now told Fluto to put that out to test the waters because they're going to fire him today. Because Fluto has more inside knowledge and more voice that comes from the Boston Bruins management, specifically Don Sweeney and Cam Neely, that half the time when he writes an article, it's really the voice of the Boston Bruins. Just saying.
Yeah.
Agree.
Fluto.
But I want to
go.
I want to go back to the situation with Bruce. I don't know that Neely was involved in this. to
In
the
firing?
extent that it was to the extent with Cassidy.
Oh yeah, no, I don't
I
think he was involved. I
no,
think, yeah, I agree with you, Dom.
I
Cassidy, he
think
wanted fired, big time.
yeah, I think like right now, Sweeney is feeling the heat himself, and he needed to do something. And this obviously he had to get the okay from the higher ups to make the firing or make the change. But I think he's feeling the heat.
Who Cam?
No, Don.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because Don fired Bruce because he knew he had to, because Cam said like pretty much you had to. And I don't think their relationship has been good ever since then, because Bruce was Don's hire. Bruce was Don's boy. Like it's always interesting. Like I was even saying to someone today, I was like, the call up last night, a Vale or Val or ever how you say it. I don't even know if I said it properly in my video. That was the most Cam Neely call up I've ever seen in my life. There was no way that Don Sweeney, Merkeloff, that's Don Sweeney's call up. There's no way that Don Sweeney wanted to interject Jeffrey Vale into the lineup last night. There's just no way. That's just not a Don Sweeney player. That is a Cam Neely, throw that guy in the lineup so he can have his stage fight at the beginning of the game and then only play 8 minutes, because there's no way that Montgomery even wanted to play the guy last night.
Had to take Koepke out off the roster.
Of all the people that gets taken out of the lineup, one of their best players.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but that's the way this team is done. And I agree with Dom. I think, unfortunately, if nothing turns around, Cam's going to get to use his bullet, fire Don, and he's going to be the scapegoat, and he doesn't have to do anything because Charlie Jacobs isn't going to get rid of Cam Neely. It's just, it is what it is.
Yep.
But Cam Neely has done so many dumb trades over the years that have all been Cam Neely. Danton Heinen, the very first time he left Boston, that was Cam Neely.
Yeah. I was going to say there seems to me a lot of Cam Neely overstepping into the general manager office, and he's getting in the way.
Well,
Cam Neely hates Swayman now, so I'd be worried for Swayman if I'm Swayman.
God, no. President has to be involved, Chris.
Being involved is one thing. Commanding and enforcing something to be done is something different. Being involved is conversational. Forcing your general manager's hand is trying to do his job for him.
No, sometimes you have to step in. There are examples where Neely stepped in with Chiarelli, where it would have been a franchise stupid move that Neely had to step in and say, no, you're not doing that. He has to be involved. It's the only way you prevent a GM from making a serious mistake. The issue is that Cam Neely makes a lot of his own mistakes.
Bear Force is asking, is Swayman being shocked?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't want to start rumors, and I hate rumors. But I was told there has been a conversation between Montreal and Boston
regarding the goaltending.
I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
If any team was going to go for him, I would think it would be Colorado. And then they would go win a cup, and it would be the most Boston Bruins thing ever.
Yeah.
But the Bruins, technically, if they put, so, and I know Dom will have this answer, if they put Hampus Lindholm on LTIR, they're not going to, because he'll be back at like January, end of December, or early February, depending on the recovery of a broken kneecap, which should be a long time. But anyways.
I was just say, have we confirmed that that's what the injury is?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah, so that's January, February he's back. Is that enough cap room to make a move, Don?
Yeah, depending on the move. You know,
'Cause I only
I
think they moved Swayman because Cam. Like, it's interesting that, Elliot Freeman started talking about the situation this week, and now everybody, and Fluto is mentioning it in his article, meaning Cam's the one who won't let it go. Cam's the one who did the interview with the Boston Globe and brought it all back up and put it all back in the media. Everybody
Yeah.
had already, like, just stopped talking about it, and Cam Neely was the one who was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this because I got a chip on my shoulder," and he's still pissed at Swayman. Like, that's what's happening.
And I want to be clear. Someone mentioned, it was Curious Browser here, mentioned that the no trade clause hasn't kicked in for Swayman. I did see, I don't remember where, but it was on a different show where someone mentioned the no trade clause for Jeremy Swayman. That hasn't kicked in yet.
Correct.
Doesn't
I
kick
did
in
it.
for a couple more
It's
seasons.
2026, 27.
Yeah, not until he turns 27.
Yeah.
A player cannot have a no trade or no movement clause until he is 27 years of age. In other words, their UFA year.
Yeah. So his first 2 years of this new deal, he can be traded, and then that's it.
I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that fact because I've seen it at least one place, and so I wanted to make sure that
Well, we see it right here.
You see it right here.
But that's Alex, that's not true. He has one that starts in 2 years. He
Yes.
cannot have a no trade, no move clause until he is 27 years of age.
The only players on the team right now that have one is Nikita Zadorov, Hampus Lindholm, David Pastrnak, and Charlie McAvoy.
Brad Marchand
Right.
has one, right?
No, Brad Marchand has a 10-team no trade.
Oh, it's modified.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
That's
does
right.
Pavel Zacha, and so does Brandon Carlo.
That's
So
right.
I did a whole video on this. I'm like, if the Bruins even making a trade, if you look how many guys have a no trade, like a minimum, a 10-team no trade or an 18 no trade or a no move clause, you go down to the Bruins can trade Morgan Geekie, Justin Brazeau, Trent Frederick, Matthew Poitras. It's like the list is so small now. It's just like, oh my God, what have you done here? Like, because they can't go through what they did last year with Linus Ullmark. They could probably still have Ullmark, but they decided they were going to move him, and then they tried to trade him to a team that was already on his list. Like, it doesn't even make any sense.
Would you rather have at this point Nikita Zadorov or Linus Ullmark on this roster?
Linus Ullmark.
Yeah.
100%.
Wouldn't even think twice. I would actually rather, and for me to say this, it means a lot. I would rather have Jake DeBrusk than the other two. And I am not a Jake DeBrusk fan, but he brings speed and he can score, and he's literally what they need right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or Dan Heinen. I'm still bitter as Dom and I. Dan Heinen is not a Boston Bruin because they were able to sign Nikita Zadorov. Otherwise, Dan Heinen would still be a Boston Bruin. And
Danton Heinen had a contract on the table, and the Bruins pulled it when they signed Zadorov.
Correct.
You and I have had this discussion the day they signed Zadorov.
Yeah, because I already knew about the Heinen contract. I was like, oh, no, man. I liked Heinen.
Yeah.
Heinen brought a lot of good things to this team.
Yeah, I definitely think they could use both of them, Heinen and DeBrusk. We got a quick question here. Can Zadorov play right D?
He did it in junior. He did it in junior. I don't know that he's ever done it in the NHL.
I would put it this way. Right now, I barely trust him playing the left side. I'm not moving him to his offside.
I just don't want him ever again with McAvoy. I'm done. Done.
Let's see. The big insight I gleaned from Dom last time was about the team being out of shape. That explains most of what we see.
That came from a coach. No, that wasn't me. The coach said that to me. And
it's interesting because Friedman said it on 32 Thoughts as well now.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, he just I listened to it at the gym this morning. He talked about how the Bruins, he heard from a coach that the Bruins look out of shape.
Yeah. I've heard it from multiple sources at this point.
They look terrible. Pastrnak looks like he's finally got his legs back, but Marchand, he can't make a zone entry if his life depended on it right now. And for some reason, if you look at most of the giveaways on the power play, it's off Marchand's stick. he for some reason can't make that outlet pass. He just can't do it.
So I want to ask both of you guys a question before we get to some of the comments, because this is very important.
Sure.
So with Georgia Merkulov being called up, kind of woke up Fabian Lysell and played on the weekend with a bee under his bonnet, thinking, hey, if he can get called up, I can get called up. Played a great game on Sunday. Would you guys give him a shot?
Yes. Wouldn't even think twice, because I look at it this way, and Dom, you know, I'm a huge Merkulov guy. Like, I'm very happy that he's been playing very well. He looked and I'll be the first to admit, Merkulov looked terrible in the preseason, but he has looked consistent. He has looked like someone who wants to stay in the NHL. So I would give Fabian Lysell another chance to do exactly what Merkulov did and show that he belongs.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point where you've used the coach bullet from the gun, I mean, at this point, you might as well start seeing what some of these other kids can have. And it's a good transition for Alex's question here. Should the Bruins look into trading Freddie? He's been rough in the playoffs, might actually get you something in return. Court, you mentioned how short the trade asset list is. You know, Poitras, Freddie, Geeky, Zacha to a small extent, Brazeau. At what point? Because I still have heard
Zach has got another 10-team list.
He's got a 10-team list, but he can still be moved to those 10 teams.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Depending on who they are, there might be some value there. I've heard.
Hold on, before you go further, no trade clauses or no movement clauses do not prevent a player from being traded.
No, I know.
It just gives them a voice.
Right. And that's why I'm including the guys with the modified ones. I've heard from multiple media outlets and other folks that I've talked to that there still seems to be the brewings of Don Sweeney pulling the trigger or considering a massive trade to shake things up. Who would you look at from this roster to try to rattle the cages?
I only look at the way Sacco coaches. He coaches like Cassidy. For everybody who's about to have Joe Sacco as the coach, it's the exact. You're going back to a very defensive structure. You will activate the defense, but not as much as they are now. So we might actually see some better hockey. But if you're Joe Sacco, he's going to want a two-way guy, right? So if Frederick, who couldn't play that game under Cassidy, he'd be like the first guy out the door for Sacco. That's just my opinion, though. I'm just looking at the way Sacco coached with Cassidy, and I know some of who they didn't like. And to me, Frederick's going out that door.
As I say, Freddie really seemed to spike his game under Montgomery. He does look better to me on the right side.
I'd want to hear from Dom, because he would. Me, it's just Frederick, just based on who the coach is going to like.
Hold on 1 second before I get to that. Since this was supposed to be the prospect show, if you're watching or listening in the United States, go to ESPN Plus. If you're in Canada, go to TSN2, because we have Providence College versus Boston College. So it's free to everybody in Canada. You'll get to see Dean Letourneau, Oscar Yelvik, and Andre Gassot versus Philip Svedback. And it should be a great hockey game. Better than what we've been watching.
That's not hard to say. That's not hard to accomplish.
So now back to the question. I think if you're trying to get an impact player, you're going to have to move an impact player. Trent Frederick is not going to get you somebody that's going to move the needle. Andrew Peake won't. Justin Brazeau won't. You know, if Hampus Lindholm wasn't injured, I'd consider moving Mason Lohrei. And
Who played
how
terrible. Oh
high,
my God.
how high I am on him.
Do you say that? Yeah. Do you say that simply because you don't think he'll fit in the new system under Sacco? Because
Oh,
as Court was saying, it'll be more defensive.
Oh no, I think Sacco's going to love Mason. Sacco and Bruce love defensemen that they're mobile and want to move the puck up the ice. They love that. Love that. So Lohrei is actually going to get. Actually, I actually think Lohrei is going to play better under Sacco than he did in Montgomery.
I think so too. But if you want to bring in a top 6 winger,
yeah, you're going to have to give up Lohrei. You're right.
You're gonna have to bite the bullet and give him up. And I was dead against moving him for Noah Hannaford.
Or Matthew Poitras. Yeah, you could have to pick one of the two. Carlo's not gonna bring you what Lohrei and Poitras bring you.
I agree, but would you consider moving him?
Yeah. But then your PK gets even worse.
I agree. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, can it really get worse?
Carlo scored the first goal of the game, right? So
yeah, there you go. He can put the puck in the net, just not the right net. I guess the other question that I have when it comes to trading Matthew Poitras, and Dom, we've had this conversation on this show before. You look at a guy like Oscar Jelvik in the system. Where is his room in this organization? And if you move on from Poitras, does that open up a future spot where Jelvik can step in?
No, to me, Oscar Jelvik is not a centerman. He's a left winger. His best days have come him playing on the left wing. He's been just terrible this year at center. In fact, they moved him back to left wing last game. So he's not fitting in down the middle.
Okay.
Kevin's got an excellent question.
How deep is the 2025 draft for forwards? That's a good question.
2025 draft is an excellent draft. It's deep for forwards and deep for defensemen. I forget who put out there today that Porter Martone and Michael Misa could challenge for the number 1 overall spot. I don't know. I think with the two of them, you have another Taylor versus Tyler situation. Who could go number 2 and 3. So you've got 3 excellent forwards right off the top. There's some excellent defensemen available. I think if you're picking anywhere, well, obviously lotto picks are much better, but if you're picking in the first round, you're going to get a player.
Yeah, so I'm not shopping that first round draft pick by any stretch.
I don't think Don Sweeney doesn't. No, I don't. I just don't see. Hey, they fought so hard to get back in the draft last year. I can't see them wanting to move another guy.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Kevin, I'm with Kevin a bit here where he says, I don't want to make panic moves by trading young players. I want them to ride out the season and hopefully get good draft position, regroup in the offseason. Since you've already fired the coach, unless you have a turnaround where you can start to build, win 3 of your next 4 or 3 of your next 5, something like that, and your play takes a full 360. At this point, the only reason why I would consider making some moves is, can you grab an extra draft pick for a guy like Trent Frederick? You're selling low, but you're not sending him out the door unless he's part of the long-term plans and you look to get an extension done. But is he playing well enough that you want to give him one?
I need to caution everybody, and I know Court's going to agree with me here 100%. Do not base what is happening with the coaching change on the next 9 games. The Bruins have a 10-game stretch where only the Vancouver Canucks are above 500.
And that's the revenge game for 3 players that used to play for the team.
Yeah. So do not base anything that happens in the next 10 days or 10 games 9 now because they obviously lost to Columbus. Do not base anything on the next 9 games because that is not going to tell you anything. What I want to see is a change in effort, a change in stamina, and a change in execution.
Yeah, the
What
only
if-
guys that are going to be able to flip the switch to the style would be the guys that were already there before. You got your Carlo, your
Yeah.
Marchand, your Pasternak. Like, as much as people say Pasternak thrived under Cassidy, Pasternak's actually going to play. Like, I know everybody loved Montgomery style because he put a little bit more offense, but certain individuals, including David Pasternak, thrived under the former system that they had.
Mm-hmm.
They played better on the other system because Pasternak with the defensive system, it makes up for his inability to play defense as well as everybody else on the team because everybody else is being so mindful of what they do. If you were watching the game last night, watch the Nesson broadcast where they have like Bergeron and everybody.
Yeah.
Bergeron breaks down the plays so well and talks about how like why did he chase him there and like talks about how they're not supposed to do certain things and he kept all Bergeron kept doing is talking about how they kept not playing the system properly. Like that's all he talked about on the broadcast.
I caught on to that too. I was watching that broadcast yesterday and I did notice that and it made me wonder. And now that, Montgomery's gone, we look back to Montgomery's first season and he made those comments about how the team basically coached itself. And then the year after that, you don't have, Bergeron, you know what I mean? Like you start to lose some of the leadership that knew that system so well. And now Montgomery's system has to pick up a little bit of slack. And now this year, that entire leadership core is pretty much gone. And now the leadership that's there has to rely on the coaching system that Montgomery wants to play. And some of them don't want to do it.
All I hope is that this coaching change allows the players to breathe. I think you said it to me, Don, a couple of days ago. The players were playing like they seemed like they were just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like they were just playing for it to end. I think that's what you said. They were just playing for this to be over with.
Yeah. But two things that you mentioned, Cord, that really stick with me. And I already asked you the question. And I'm going to ask you again. So you mentioned Jake DeBrusk and the speed and his ability to create offense is lacking. And you mentioned how the defensive system under Sacco will be much like it was under Cassidy, and that actually benefits David Pasternak. So when do we see Fabian Lysell?
I honestly think you're going to see him sooner rather than later, especially because if you look at the teams they're about to play, besides the Vancouver Canucks, this next stretch of games is probably the easiest stretch the Bruins have. As you alluded to, Dom, they're playing one team that's over 500. This is the perfect time to drop Fabian Lysell into it. You're playing a bunch of teams besides the team that they just lost to that's only 4. They're sitting at 444%. Man, they should have beat the Columbus, but you're playing against teams like Montreal that their defense is young and not that good. Like Fabian Lysell would be perfect in the lineup against Montreal Canadiens. Like almost the perfect game to throw him in the lineup. That is a game that is, if the Boston Bruins don't wake up, the Montreal Canadiens are going to steamroll them in that game. They're a fast hockey club that do transition. And the Bruins can't forecheck them to death. So the Bruins need some speed for that lineup. And you're going to have Merkulov, but I think Fabian Lysell would be perfect for against the Montreal Canadiens.
Now, it sounds to me, just off of what you're saying, the perfect person to take out of the lineup would probably be Justin Brazeau.
No comment. I like Brazeau on that second line.
I like him,
but he might struggle in this new system. As this new system starts kicking in, he might struggle on the ice.
And Bruins Meat points out Montreal just smoked Toronto.
Yeah, Montreal is a very fast hockey club. They play the transition. They do. If you remember, what year was it when McAvoy broke in the league and the Bruins were playing Ottawa and the Montreal Canadiens? Yeah. What was that year? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Uh,
The way the Ottawa Senators played back then is they used to try and stretch out the other team, and they would stretch out the defense, and then they would do that lob. They would use
yeah.
their speed to overtake, just kind of like how Pastrnak scored the OT winner against the Leafs last year. The Montreal Canadiens play that way. So what they're going to do is they're not going to forecheck you to death. They're going to try and stretch you out. So what they're going to do is the Bruins they're not fast. So the Montreal Canadiens are just going to keep stretching and stretching and stretching. And then you're going to see a lot of 2-on-1s. You're going to see a lot of breakaways. If the Bruins don't close that in, and they don't have speed to compensate, like Carlo, none of these guys are going to be able to catch. Like Zadorov is going to look terrible against the Montreal Canadiens if they don't if they don't button it up. I'd like to say
structure, a better structure.
Montgomery activates the defense and allows them to move forward and pinch. Sacco's not going to allow that. He's going to want them to hang back. McAvoy might look good again. Like he's going to want the defense is going to play a more structured defense, and they're going to be playing. They're not going to be. It's not going to look like the other teams on the power play all the time. Like that's what drives me insane.
And that's what it looks like on some nights.
Yeah, I just don't see that. That's the only thing I don't mind about Sacco. I wish it was a new voice, but I know that a guy like Marchand is really going to resonate with Sacco because he's had him for over 10 years, right?
So
yeah,
you're talking about Marchand. Kevin points out, he says the real question here that he wants to be addressed is Brad Marchand a captain?
Yes.
Yes.
Because Kevin says he never wanted him to get the seat.
That's fine. Kevin, everybody can have their opinion. I just think that Marchand has proven himself time after time this year, especially the way he speaks to the media, especially the way he sticks up for his teammates. He even stuck up for Montgomery a couple times this year. He
even gave it back to Montgomery too.
100%. But he has done an extremely good job at representing what it is to be a captain, especially in the media. I don't know. I know personally, I've met him off the ice a bunch of times. He's the nicest guy in the freaking world, and everybody loves him. So I don't see any issue with Brad Marchand being the captain.
And he learned under Chara and Bergeron. So
100%.
To say he's got
Anyways, I have to run, boys.
Okay. Thank you so much for jumping on. We will definitely talk more.
Yes.
Take care.
Watch the game. It's a good game.
I'm doing the show with you, and I don't want to slow my internet down even more. So
that's why I've got it on the TV instead of my computer.
Real quick, I don't know if you caught this. Matrix earlier said that they had a message for me. I just want to summarize it for you. It's a nice little paragraph mentioning that a couple players who wished to remain anonymous spoke to someone that they knew, and that Monty was basically losing the locker room because he was shouting and getting angry with players behind closed doors, changing the culture, and that it made players feel uncomfortable, like they were walking on eggshells. And then add to that the new system that he was trying to put into place that they didn't really like to make the adjustments for. It all just kind of snowballed into the cluster that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's I don't know. I think he lost the room.
I think so.
It was pretty obvious, and it looked like the players just were not playing for him. They just didn't execute. These are guys. These are professional hockey players who have played in the system under Montgomery before. Do they all of a sudden forget how to play? No.
You mentioned the next 10 games. I think the only exception to your statement there would be if they come out and they still suck. And it's more of what we've seen. That would keep me worried about this team. But
it's what I've been saying all year long, all season long. I want to see improvement. Remember, October was terrible. We didn't see the improvement going into November. We actually seen in some cases where it got worse. You know, now there's a new voice. I don't expect it to change overnight, but I want to see gradual improvement. But I'm not going to base anything that Sacco does on wins or losses over the next 9 games. I need the eye test.
Yeah. You got to really see what they're able to put together. I would love for them to make a roster adjustment and have Fabian Lysell come up, especially at least for the Montreal games, as Court was talking about the speed. Do you think Sweeney has the stomach to make roster move like that right now after having just fired the coach?
Yeah.
Do you think he has the stomach to make a move, like a core shaking move, not just a move where it's Trent Frederick, we opted not to extend him, and so we'll just take a draft pick for him to, open up a spot to try and get a Fabian Lysell up in the NHL on the second line and bump Brezzo down or something?
No, I think with the move today, we're not going to see anytime soon a major blockbuster deal. I don't, because then if he does, then he's got egg on his face saying, hey, it wasn't the coach, it was the roster I assembled.
Yeah.
So I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a conundrum right now to see what happens next, because I mean you could make the case that this was something that should have been done weeks ago. So Tyler asks, regardless of the eye test, win or loss over the next 10, is there any roster players you would see being moved? I've heard a couple names being out there, and I don't know how much, like you said, after a move like this, if you make a move of significance, do you then put that target right back on yourself if you're Don Sweeney by making a move? And as Court pointed out, everyone has some, or most players have some type of control over where they can go. So you're going to limit yourself in most of your dealings if you're looking to move someone halfway decent with some decent money attached to their name.
No, I don't think we're seeing a move. We're months away from seeing a trade.
You might see something at the deadline, depending on where they are at that point.
I'd be very, if Sweeney makes a big move now, he's just admitting he was wrong.
Now,
and at that point, you might as well fire him.
With the interim tag on Sacco, are there any other coaches around the National Hockey League right now who might be on the hot seat in the next couple months? I've heard Mike Sullivan, some people would want to have them take a run at. I've heard Derek Lalonde in Detroit. Is there anyone who's currently coaching in the NHL who might lose their job that you may want to see them target if they become available over leaving Sacco as the interim? Because I know your true answer is Dale Hunter, but
yeah, but I know that's not going to happen. Dale Hunter's not going to leave the London Knights, who, by the way, are now ranked number 1 in the country. They surpassed Moncton with our own Loke Johansson there. But anyway, he's the owner of the London Knights. He makes millions of dollars. He's not going to give that up to go to the NHL. Although we did see Mark Hunter do it with the Leafs, so who knows? But is there any? I don't know. I think I need to see what the team is capable of doing over the next few weeks before I consider hiring a new coach. I'd wait till the off season when the market becomes that much bigger.
Yeah, I just don't know what the point would be either, because it almost makes it seem like as if a roster move right away puts the target on Sweeney's back. It's like, well, clearly you knew that you didn't want Montgomery to be the coach. So, Kevin.
Yeah, but on the same hand, do you want to hire some guy in a couple of weeks like Mike Sullivan that becomes available, and all of a sudden in May, John Cooper becomes available?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You want to work with all the information.
I'm not hiring anybody now.
Anyway, we haven't discussed the prospects in a while. I know you mentioned the game going on right now. How's the game going?
Actually, it's a great game. BC's up 1-0. They gave up a goal, much like Swayman's first goal against last night. Or was it the second? I can't remember.
Or was it the fourth? Or was it the fifth? Or was it? There were so many.
Well, the first or second. But I watched Jelvik go after a player who's like 2 feet taller than him, so that's a good sign.
Let's see. I'm just trying to pull up where some of these are going right now. Let's see, because we haven't run through. It's been a couple weeks since we ran through.
We had Craig on last week. I want to say something though, if I can.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to these prospect reports, I've been doing them, as you know, for a few years now. It's something I've done with passion and for nothing. I make nothing out of it for years and years and years. And then I talked to you about starting this show, just doing one exclusively for prospects. And we started it. Now, you know, do people like it? I would say 80,000 people a month go back to read my prospect reports every Monday. 80,000. So, yeah, they like it and they appreciate it. The show will get there eventually. But now, and I'm a firm believer that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. There are other sites now that are starting to do the same thing, and all the power to them. I hope that they get 80,000 visitors a month as well. And others are starting to do a show like we started. I just want to say I appreciate the people that come back every Monday to read it. I don't take anything for granted. I work hard. I have hockey games going on all over the place, watching and recording and watching when I have time. And I just want to say I hope people appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't think everyone has the ability to reach out, so hopefully I can speak for a lot of those 80,000. We do. We do appreciate the work, the effort, the time that it puts in. You've gotten me on the bandwagon. I've been going through some health issues that have made me eternally exhausted lately, so I haven't been able to watch as much other games because of the shows that we do primarily about the Bruins. I've been trying to prioritize the Bruins games and that sort of thing, but hopefully in the coming weeks and shortly I'll be able to get back into the late night hour games and a lot more of that stuff as well. I'm gonna start trying to do a bit more video content, bring back my other show Puck Off and some of the content through that, because that's another avenue that we can cover some of the uh, other teams across the league, some of the other leagues even. You've been nice enough to help connect me personally to some of these other folks like Craig and a few others. Court, obviously, who's very entrenched in the game. So from myself personally and for being one of those readers of your weekly, we do appreciate it. So, not everyone watches the show, but those that do, I mean, the numbers are getting better, as you mentioned. It's I appreciate everybody who tunes in to pay attention to us and give us their thoughts and stuff. So, as Bear Force says, no one watches as much hockey as you, Dom, and you watch a lot of it, so we don't have to. So we
Well,
thank you.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I watch a lot of hockey. So, what was it? Sunday's show we did. I raced back from Sarnia. I was at the
Yes,
Kitchener Rangers Sarnia Sting game to walk in the door and hop right on the show. So, yeah, I watch a lot of hockey. Maybe too
not the
much.
first time that you've been jumping back in from an arena as well. So, but it's funny too because half the time when we're doing the show, I'll also pull up the articles that you have to write so that I can remember some of the stuff that I was able to catch and refer to some of the short notes that I have. But yeah, I mean, nothing beats watching it in person, but the way that you're able to capture it through the various channels is helpful to everyone. But you mentioned that Providence College is playing tonight. Svedback, is he actually in goal tonight?
Um, yes, that is him.
So how is he looking? Because right now, if they do end up moving on and Cam Neely gets his way to move on from Swayman, they may need Svedback.
He's no Jeremy Swayman.
No,
Well,
he's not.
at this point, I could be doing better than Jeremy Swayman, but he's doing all right. It's only 8 minutes left in the first period, so long way to go. Long way to go.
Absolutely. I will say though, I'm excited to still see though that Ty Gallagher has continued his
Oh
his
my
run.
God!
He's what now 9 points in 10 games.
Yeah.
So
Top line minutes averaging, or top pair minutes averaging, I think it's 22 minutes a game. It just goes to show that sometimes a player needs a change of scenery, or shall we call it, or needs to get away from a certain coach, right?
yeah.
Because 2 years ago he was almost this good. This year he's lighting it up. Last year he got demoted to seventh defenseman, barely played, put up, I think it was 5 points on the season.
Seemed like he got demoted to 8th defenseman in the 7 defenseman unit.
Yeah. For whatever reason, Jay Pandolfo just, I don't know,
I don't
didn't
get it.
like him. Didn't like
Yeah.
him.
I do want to ask Kevin a question on his statement here. If the Bruins move on from Swayman within the first 2 years of his contract, it's an utter failure by the front office and a fireable offense. Now, here's my question to you, Kevin. If Cam Neely demands that Jeremy Swayman get traded because of the negotiations and him being upset by that, is that a fireable offense towards Cam Neely or a fireable offense to Don Sweeney or to both of them? That's my question. Jason, while I'm waiting for Kevin's response, wants to know thoughts on Dean Letourneau so far.
Actually, I'm just watching a highlight of him right now of taking the puck from the corner and coming out to the front of the net or to the side of the net, tried to tuck it home and got knocked on his ass. Here's what I'll say about Letourneau. I wish that he had gone to the USHL for a season, or now, because of the NCAA rule changes, to the OHL for a season. I think the jump to the NCAA has at times looked good, that he could hold his own, and at times looked like this is a guy that should be at a lower level. He needs to get stronger. Like, he's got the size, but he needs to get stronger. Just watching him on a face-off here, he just towers over everybody. But the physical strength and the maturity isn't there yet. And I think he would have been better served spending the year in the USHL or the OHL.
That's fair. Real quick, Kevin is saying someone has to be fired because they chose Swayman over Ullmark. And if Swayman continues this and they have to trade him, it's probably Sweeney that's gone. Again, Kevin, if the command to trade him comes from Cam Neely, is that if you truly believe it to be a fireable offense, wouldn't you then have to put the blame on Neely because he's trading him because he's being petty, not because Jeremy Swayman is not the right goaltender? It's all about why is the player traded. And then Bear Force is saying that Sweeney has to be on the hot seat now. Thoughts on that comment?
Well, I absolutely said that right from the get-go on the show. If things don't start to turn around and look better, he's put a target on his back. Back to Kevin and your comments. Just imagine Brian Burke in Cam Neely's spot. Do you think any of this Jeremy Swayman stuff would have gotten as far as it did?
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. I feel like Cam is a very emotional guy, especially compared to Sweeney. Sweeney is very much don't show a reaction, formulate a plan, and react with your actions.
Sweeney is calculated and decisive, and maybe he takes too much time to evaluate. That can be a fault in its own with him. But yeah, you can't make hockey decisions based on emotion, and that's what Cam Neely does.
I'd ask where we go from here, but I mean, really, right now, it's what do they do from here? We have to see how it unfolds. You're still going to have your crowd that backs management. You're going to have your crowd that backs and says that Montgomery wasn't the problem. You're going to have the crowd that says that the players screwed him. And everybody's right. Everybody's, everyone's overlapping to some degree as far as who's correct in that. Unfortunately, now we're in a position where we just need to see what the players do to react. This could light a fire under them, and things could change completely. It could do nothing for them.
Yeah, it's a time thing right now. Listen, I'm not going to mention a name here, but I was having a chat when just seconds before the firing came down with a person in the Bruins media I have a ton of respect for, love his work, and is about as honest as they come. And I don't have permission to mention his name, so I won't. And basically, he just replied to me in private to a tweet that I made, where I said, I've said it 1,000 times. The Bruins needed to fire Montgomery 2 seasons ago after that debacle in the playoffs with the Panthers. This is the final straw. He needs to go now. I'm usually the most patient person you can find. I have no patience left. It's time. Mm-hmm. And I am very patient. So he messaged me. And his opinion is that Montgomery lost the room in the 24 playoffs when Bennett KO'd Marchand and then cross-checks Coyle for the game-winning goal. And Montgomery's reply was, the reps do a great job. And basically when Sweeney was asked about it, in his words, Sweeney had to do damage control and actually got upset at the media and raised his voice and changed his tone for asking. But the change is not going to happen overnight. We need to see how the players respond. Like I said, this is a better team on paper than it was last year. To me, there were several issues. Execution, number one. And systematic, number two. And if I was to believe this coach that I spoke to, stamina has to be up there. So all of that is not going to change overnight. We need to give it some time. But if the players don't respond with effort, I don't care if they win or lose Thursday. I don't care. If they don't respond with effort, then firing Montgomery was pointless.
Yeah.
You need to see the effort.
Yeah, because like you said earlier, they were playing in a way that made it look like they wanted to get him fired.
Yeah, and if they come out with 100% effort for 60 minutes on Thursday night, you know damn well they were playing to get the coach fired.
Which would bode some potential truth to comments that I've heard about players going to Sweeney and Neely, basically saying some of what that other comment that I was reading from earlier was referring to, and saying that he was going that some players went to Sweeney and Neely and basically said, we don't want to play for him anymore. He's lost the room in these ways.
Listen, the way it should work is the players go to Pasternak, they go to McAvoy, and they go to Marchand. They are the captains. That's the way it should work. And then the captains either have a conversation with the coach to change things, or they go to management.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that too, because there was an episode of Frankly Speaking, Frank Saravalli's podcast, where he sat down with some of the Bruins guys, including Jim Montgomery, heading into the season. I think you referenced it in one of our episodes shortly after it came out, where Montgomery talks about how he sat down with some of the players, and some of the players came to him with some of the things they didn't like about his coaching style and some of the things that he was doing. It didn't really seem like, and I want to go back and listen to that now with a different perspective, but it didn't really seem like he cared all that much what they brought to the table. And it was just kind of it was a conversation, not a conversation towards resolution, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Look, people that are defending him are pointing to 2 years ago in the record and most wins in a season, most points in a season. Man, I could have coached that team. Honestly,
Yeah.
I could have coached that team.
Yeah,
Then
it was
Sweeney goes out and makes all the moves he needs to make. And the same people that are giving Montgomery all the credit for that are the same people that blame him for neutering Garnet Hathaway. So he had to change. Montgomery had Hathaway change the way that he plays. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either one or the other. He's part of the problem, or he's not part of the problem.
Yeah, and to your point, if you're going to give him the credit for the things he did right, you also have to rip him for bad decisions that he made, for the lack of adjustments that he wasn't making in game. Things like separating Marchand and Bergeron, playing Bergeron in an unnecessary Game 5 when you had a 3-game lead, playing Allmark when he clearly wasn't 100%. Regardless of what your goaltending coach tells you, if you know that the guy is not 100% and you have the backup that you had all season because it was a tandem goaltending system, you go with the guy who's 100%.
Yeah.
If they are equivalent in talent, which at that point they were viewed roughly as such, or damn near close, it wasn't a significant drop-off, you go to the healthier guy.
Every time.
And let's not forget, like you said, Don Sweeney did his job. You had Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall was your third-line left wing. That's how deep that roster was.
That team should have won a Stanley Cup. Yeah, the players take part of the blame, but most of the blame goes to coaching. You have to.
Bear Force says these guys are pro athletes making big money. No reason for them not to be in shape. Jason mentions if it's stamina they lack, people aren't going to like it, but Max Jones has been playing much better lately. Let's see.
I want to touch on that.
Okay. On Max Jones?
No, the stamina thing, because two people have now mentioned it. I remember in the preseason, I was worried about October. There are a lot of reasons. New kids, weddings overseas, players going to weddings overseas, injuries, what have you. A lot of the players didn't train in the offseason like they normally would. And I had concerns about that. They were going to show up in camp out of shape. Neely didn't come out and say it, but he hinted at it. And that was after I'd been talking about it.
Yeah. It just and to the comment about how they're pro athletes, yeah, so are their opponents. So if you have two pro athletes and one of them trains and one of them doesn't, the one that doesn't is going to be behind by a significant margin. It's just going to happen that way.
Yeah.
Bear Force also mentions Cassidy did the same with Rask against the Islanders. He was hurt and still played him. The big difference there, though, is you didn't have the backup behind Rask, known backup. I
Right.
believe he's referring to when it was still Yaro Halak behind him. While Yaro Halak was a good, solid backup, he was not. You did not have the tandem that you had with Allmark and Swayman. It was a different scenario. I get where you're going with it, but it was totally different. You go with Rask every time. Now, if you had Rask and Allmark, that would be a little bit different. They're both capable starters. Kevin says, I know you hate speculation and all that, but if Bruce Cassidy was coaching that super team, do they win the cup?
I don't know. I mean, if they got past Florida, they'd still have to win 3 more rounds. So it's hard to say. Do I think they beat Florida? Yes.
Yeah.
Win the cup? I don't know. But they should have. That team was built to win the Stanley Cup.
And they had every ability to do it. My opinion is that if Cassidy was the coach, they probably go and win the cup, honestly. But to Dom's point, we won't know. We don't know. Maybe they get eliminated and maybe they lose in the cup. They probably make the cup final though, which would have been 4 under the Don Sweeney regime. If they went on to go to the cup final, let's say they had either one coach. Coach doesn't matter. If they had gone to another cup final that year, do people
Still a failure.
Right, but
Still
do
a
people
failure.
look at Don Sweeney's tenure a little differently, being that he has gotten them to an additional 3 Stanley Cup finals?
Oh, I don't know. For fans, it's what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, true. I'll have that conversation with Kevin later because I think they do. Real quick, David also asks up here, should the Bruins consider TJ Miller from the Canucks? I don't know if he's asking this because of the news that came out earlier today or isn't aware of, but JT Miller is taking an indefinite leave right now from the Canucks. And will be away from the team. So right now, I would say he is off the table for anybody. I don't.
My question would be, why would Vancouver trade him?
Well, that's another good point. But I don't believe he's entering the player assistance program. It's just time that he's taking away from the team. So Dan with another good question here, might be my ignorance, but are off-season expectations training-wise not contractually mandated? Can you get into that a little bit for us?
No, it's not contractually mandated, but they do have to pass a physical when they get to camp.
They take physicals throughout. Actually, real quick, speaking of some other injury, former Bruin Mike Riley is also out for a while due to a heart condition that was found after he got a concussion and was going through medical testing to get cleared to play again. So, looks like you've got Jason watching the game.
Yeah,
he says,
I don't know. I don't know how he missed that, but I mean, I think that thing, I haven't seen a replay from up above, but I think that thing was almost perfectly parallel to the goal line.
Absolutely.
It was right there. Svedback was basically down and out of the play, wide open net. And he's off to the side a little bit, but instead of, taking his time and putting it in, straight across the goal line or the goal mouth. I don't know how he missed it.
And Curious Browser, as we were talking about the team being slow, mentions when you're behind, you get beaten to the puck and take lazy penalties, which is some of what we're seeing. So it does bring some credence to the comments about them being slow or being sluggish, that sort of thing. Bear Force, I doubt the Jets make any trades going so well, but one guy I would like is Gabe Velarde. We'll have to see if he's available. David,
back to the speed thing. You're going too fast because I don't get a chance to respond.
Sorry, go ahead.
In hockey, there's two types of speed. There's skating speed, which is what 99% of the fan base focuses on, and then there's game speed. I guarantee you, under Sacco, the game speed will pick up. Game speed is moving the puck quickly, moving the puck accurately, and to the right person. I guarantee you their game speed will go up.
That is definitely one of the areas that they need to focus on,
Yeah,
regardless of who the coach was.
Right. You got to understand that speed is just not a skating thing.
Real quick, David is asking, Miller asked for a trade. I never heard that.
I never heard that.
At least not recently. Matrix with a very good question. Can you explain the difference between a Monty type system and a Sacco type system offensively and defensively?
Defensively, there's not much difference because Sacco runs that anyway. And it basically the same system that Claude Julien used. I think Sacco came in, 2014?
That sounds about right.
So the big difference, and Court kind of alluded to it earlier, is you'll see a change in the breakout. Under Montgomery, he wants the forwards out in the neutral zone. So to create odd man rushes, and it doesn't work because especially against a heavy forechecking team, the defensemen are under so much pressure that they can't get it to the forwards up there. Under Sacco, you'll see what it was a couple of years ago, where the forwards came back to, let's say, 2/3 up the circle along the wall to support the defenseman, to give them the outlet, and to get out of the zone. So you're not going to see as many odd man rushes, but this is why you're not seeing them score on the rush, is because they're not getting the opportunity under the way they've been playing. So that's the key difference. Offensively, I think both guys want to activate the defense. Cassidy did as well. But I think what you'll find with Sacco, like Cassidy, is that there'll be a shot volume team, whereas shots from the point, traffic in front, sticks on pucks, rebounds, what have you. I think what the defensemen need to learn is to shoot with a purpose and put pucks in places where it can be tipped or the goalie can't swallow it up and create a rebound. Under Montgomery, there is no shot volume. It's quality. You look for the perfect play.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the offense might get sparked, because we've seen games this year and last under Montgomery in general where when they have a higher shot volume, they get more points. And
yeah,
I mean, they had a game earlier, the entire third period, not a single shot on goal because they were overlooking for the perfect shot opportunity. They gave up on shots that weren't as good. I think this team is going to benefit from that offensively. We'll have to see, though.
It'll have to play out. Matrix was a tough question.
Which one? This one here?
At the bottom.
What players will benefit from Sacco type system?
Yeah. I think all of the defensemen will. I really do. Because there won't be as much pressure on them on the forecheck, and the breakout will be easier for them. Up front,
Well, Court mentioned Pasta.
Yeah, Pasta for sure. I agree with him that Brazeau is going to have a hard time under
Sacco.
Under the Sacco system defensively. I think offensively, he's built for that net front guy who can get sticks on pucks. I mean, I think he's only scored one goal this season that's been more than a foot away from the blue paint. So offensively, it's meant for him. Defensively, I don't know. I think he's going to struggle with him. I agree with Court on that. I think it'll really help Elias Lindholm and Zaka.
I was going to say, Lindholm was one of the ones that I was thinking too.
Yeah. I guess
I think Marchand.
I think it's easier to say who would it hurt. I think it overall, Brazeau, because of the defensive side, Trent Frederick, Tyler Johnson, Morgan Geekie. It's going to hurt them. I think the Koepke, Beecher, Costellic line will thrive under it. And they've been great already. But I think they'll thrive under this system. If they can get the defensive part of the game right, I think they're gonna do well. So there's a few players it's not gonna help. Those mentioned, but we'll see. Again, we have to see it play out.
Now, do you envision any changes to the lineup as far as the line combinations? Like, do you think we might see Lindholm, Zaka, Pasternak again?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. This is like a mini training camp for Sacco.
Well, I do think he has the benefit of having been there through the training camp, having been on the bench, seeing what has worked, what hasn't worked. He has some notes that allow him a little bit of a head start. But like you said, he's gonna get a ramp of, the first 10 games, 9 games to, worry just about the performance.
I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but it's a new system. Okay, it's a new system. It's a training camp for him. Because Lindholm and Pasternak didn't work under Montgomery's system doesn't mean it can't work under Sacco's system.
No, that's what I mean. Is he has the benefit of seeing what they looked like under Montgomery's system and what did work and what didn't work. He is the benefit of having worked under Bruce's system, which is closer to his own, and under Monty's system, which is different from his. So he has an ability to kind of take a little bit of both worlds there.
It's a training camp. Whether you like it or not, it's a mini training camp for him. It always is when a new coach comes in. I want to take away from what Chris is saying. What does that mean?
Referring to the way you took over from what I was talking about. I think you meant to say you don't want to take away from what I'm saying, but you're going to anyway.
No,
I know where you're
because
going with it. Kevin's just trying to stir shit up.
there is some truth to what you're saying, but by saying it, you're taking away it's a mini training camp.
We're both right. It's a meld of both of them.
It's everybody is starting you, Chris. He's trying. What happened under Montgomery, what happened under Cassidy are different. Okay. Elias Lindholm wasn't there when Cassidy was. Now, Sacco has to try it under his system. It's brand new.
And see, even Kevin says he's being a troll, which I get. He's just trying to stir shit up. We're on the same page. Don't worry.
Back to that PK.
This one here, Sacco should be able to fix the PK and PP quickly.
Okay, so here's the issue. People still don't realize what coach was responsible for what. Jim Montgomery and Chris Kelly ran the power play. It was their job. Okay, they ran the power play. And some people are wondering, why would Chris Kelly ever be coaching a power play? And the train of thought is that because he knows how to kill penalties, and that he should know how to break down the penalty kill. That's the train of thought. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's what the idea of having Chris Kelly coach the power play is all about. Sacco coached the PK. Now, we all know the PK has sucked, but you go back to the Bruins PK since Sacco has been running it. It's always near the top of the league. So what's the issue? Again, is it the players not playing for the coach? And I tell you what, I don't have a lot of respect for players that give up and are trying to get a coach fired. It's not right. Go to your GM, voice your concerns, but don't be dickheads and do it for at the expense of fans who are paying a couple of $100 to come and watch you play hockey.
Yeah, that part's just not right. That part doesn't sit well with me either. JFM says, is there a coach out there who would be a good fit, a defensive tactician perhaps?
For the PK?
I don't know if they're referring to just the penalty kill, but just in general, like
defense?
Is there a defensive coach?
They got him. His name is Joe Sacco. He's been coaching the defense on this team for years. And just look at where they are in terms of goals against average.
Do you think he maintains his duties as coaching the defense as well as taking over the head coaching responsibilities?
He's got Leach to coach the defenseman. He's got Kelly to handle the forwards. In terms of systems, that'll be Sacco's responsibility.
I want to know how JFM expects this to be done. Overall, the defensive structure besides Sacco.
Well, I don't know.
How do you do that if Sacco is the one who has the defensive system? So,
will a coach become available at the end of the year? I'm absolutely positive one will. But it's the Bruins are going to base everything on what happens here going forward.
Yeah. Dracula says, does Sacco change out any of the other coaches or look for another? I feel like that'd be more of an off-season move if they remove the interim tag, right?
I don't think Sweeney will allow him to fire any of his assistants at this point, because he's just got the interim tag.
Yeah. Jason says, I worry about a core that quit on 2 coaches. If I'm trying to think of the best way, if the talk of Montgomery kind of going into the locker room, setting the locker room proverbially on blaze and screaming at players, yelling at players, and kind of undoing a lot of the culture in that regard. If that stuff is true, which again, it who knows, we're not in that room. I don't worry about it, because them going to management saying we don't want to play for a coach that's not following the Bruins way, essentially, would make sense, and that's something that you'd want to see that leadership core take part in, and basically say to their teammates, as a team, this is not what we stand for. This is not what we're about. Now, if it's not true, and they just quit playing, tried to get him fired. Like, the players only have so much leverage. So if as a collective, the coach has done something that makes the room go, we don't want to play for you, and they've gone to management, and management has said, too bad, he's the coach, deal with it. They only have so much control as far as getting a coach fired who they don't feel like they can comfortably play for. So I get where you're coming from too, and like I said, it doesn't sit well with me either to say they have to play to a level to get the coach fired, but that's really the only option they have at that point if management says to them, too bad, deal with it.
If that's what happened.
Right. Matrix says, I would bet tomorrow's practice will be much, much different than it has been. Do you think they come out with a bag skate tomorrow?
No. Well, why would they come out with a bag skate?
If they're not in shape, they might need it.
That's why they have coaches specifically for that. It's what they pay them for.
Kevin's thrown this name out there a couple times here. Thoughts on Ryan Mujanel taking over? Kevin says that he's like a mix of Cassidy and Montgomery. He's the best of both worlds.
I wish Kevin was on the show, because I can't wait for him to type out the response to my question. Based on what?
Well, Kevin, let's see the paragraph here, because I'm sure he's got an answer, but I mean, could Mujanel be the right guy? Maybe. I mean, at this point, Joe Sacco could be the right guy. I mean, you got to wait and let things play out at this point, which is the most frustrating thing. I mean, I don't know about you, Dom, but I'm going to enjoy sitting back and watching as all the fires come out on social media of people losing their absolute shit left and right, because
that's why you don't read it. And I absolutely hate when you tag me in your conversations with the idiots on Twitter. Like, I don't even respond to them. What I do is I click on leave the conversation. I can't be bothered reading it. What I will say in response to Kevin is this. Joe Sacco has the job on an interim basis. You're not seeing Ryan Mougenel. You're not seeing anybody else. Joe Sacco is there for the foreseeable future, probably till the end of the season. Now, if Sacco fails, then you could be looking at the end of the Don Sweeney era, because it now means it wasn't a coaching issue, it was a management issue. And what's going to happen if he brings in Mougenel now as the head coach?
So
he's going to admit to making two mistakes?
Kevin has his answer to you. He says, based on his time in Providence, he develops players well. He is good at creating rapport with his players. He is stern when he has to and a player-first coach when he has to. He adapts well to individual players' needs. Now, my counter to that, Kevin, isn't that what the report was on Jim Montgomery when he first came in?
Exactly. And
So,
my question would be, who has Ryan Mougenel developed that's on this roster?
yeah, because he basically Matt Poitras skipped over him. He's working with him now, but until now, Matt Poitras skipped over him. Fabian Lysell hasn't cracked it. There really hasn't been a lot.
Mason Lohrei for a handful of games?
Maybe. Kevin says, I'm not saying right now. I'm saying hopefully in the future. Bear Force says, win-win for me. If they do well under Sacco, great. If not, Sweeney is gone too. So,
and honestly, if Sweeney is gone, might as well get rid of Neely too.
yeah, I don't think ownership wants to do that, and I don't understand why that's not on the table as much as it is supposedly not on the table.
Look, the last time this team won a Stanley Cup, they brought in somebody from outside the organization, didn't give him the president's title, but gave him complete control of hockey operations. And that was Peter Chiarelli.
Wait, real quick. Big Mike says, yeah, I don't see Mougenel. I think he's been mediocre at best in Providence. Guys like Lohrei and Beecher shower more in NHL. Show more, I think is what he means, in NHL than in Providence. What JFM says, what is Sacco's record with developing younger players? Kevin mentions a couple, Brazeau, Beecher, Lohrei. Shaz mentions Providence hasn't been great so far either. Record is 6-7-2. Big Mike adds in, absolutely Neely should go before or at the same time as Sweeney. And then Kevin, but he can only work with what he has. Bruins haven't been bringing in a plethora of top-end prospects due to the draft position.
I think we should move the talk of potential coaching replacements to later in the season, when they actually will be looking for one, because I don't think they're looking for one now.
I don't think so either.
And
Jason
Sacco can come in, turn everything completely around, and they take the interim tag off of them after Christmas.
Yeah,
well, we got to let it play out.
Jason says they'll just give Neely a different position.
Yeah, make him president of the Cam Neely Foundation.
Yeah, something like that. I know a couple folks have been shouting at the rooftops. I know I'm out on him, but some folks are saying that they should be looking at bringing in Joe Quenneville as a coach. Any thought to consider that?
Look, it will be a PR nightmare for the Bruins to bring in Quenneville after the whole Mitchell Miller fiasco, hiring an independent person to come in and firm to come in and figure out what went wrong. And when they come back and tell you, basically, you've got to do your homework a little bit better. Look, there's no homework to be done on Joel Quenneville. We know what's out there. Everybody knows what's out there. PR nightmare.
Do you think they would still do it though? Do you think Cam Neely would want to do that?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't do it. I do question whether it's a move that Cam Neely would get himself involved with.
Look, Court mentioned it. I don't want to get into big details about it. The Court mentioned it where Cam Neely and Don Sweeney don't see eye to eye. They're not the best of friends. Okay? You go back to the Mitchell Miller situation. Cam Neely basically threw Don Sweeney under the bus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Do you think Cam Neely is going to let Don Sweeney hire Joe Quenneville after that whole situation? No.
No.
You look at the press conference where Neely come out and said, "I've got $64 million on the table about Jeremy Swayman." Anybody notice the look on Don Sweeney's face?
No, I haven't been able to find the replay of that.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? That was his reaction.
I wanted to see that reaction, and I haven't been able to find a clip of it.
Cam Neely was beloved as a player by Bruins fans, and I think that rubs off onto the management side. I loved him as a player. I hate him on management side. The players he played with never liked him. I told you to go back to the ceremony night where that team come all out and they were all shaking each other's hands. Watch Cam Neely go through the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch it like I told you to?
I went back and I caught a little bit of it, yeah. And they don't...
Cam Neely was never very well liked, and as a player, amongst players. Ray Bourque and him had it out. Why do you think Ray Bourque distances himself from the franchise at this point as much as possible?
Goes without saying.
And again, Don Sweeney, there are things Don Sweeney is excellent at. I wish he had stayed in the development stage. I never wanted him as a GM. But it is what it is. We've had to live with it. And I have to admit, there are times that he has surprised me with how well he's done some things.
Yeah. I think he catches a lot of unnecessary flack from Bruins fans because he has patience. I always come back to the fact that he leaves himself options. He doesn't put himself in a position where he absolutely has to make certain decisions. Now, everybody feels like they had to make that Ullmark trade. They could have worked around it. They could have opted to keep both Swayman and Ullmark and not signed a guy like Nikita Zadorov. There were those options. They weren't the best options, but they were there. So, he was able to get a deal that I think a lot of people, now that Korpisalo is finding his game, Kostelic is playing as well as he was before he got hurt. They see that they got a center in Dean Letourneau that is projected to develop well. People will like that return overall. Dracula even says, unpopular opinion, Sweeney is a good GM. He's a fantastic GM overall. There's a reason he was tapped on the shoulder for Team Canada for the Four Nations face-off to be part of that team. He's well respected as a general manager around the league. Is he perfect? No. But he's certainly learning on the job, and I would much rather be the team that gives him the second chance go around at being a general manager. That's for damn sure.
Ask yourself this. If Jim Montgomery, Don Sweeney, and Cam Neely were all fired today, which two of the three would get another NHL job?
Well, I think Don Sweeney would get one first, and then probably Montgomery second.
I would think it's the other way around, but we agreed Cam Neely isn't getting one.
Well, right now there's no head coaching position that
and there's no GM position either.
No, but I can see a front office making room to bring him in.
A team is bound to fire a coach between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, I could see a general manager though making a position open in his front office.
Not as GM.
No. As some consultant role.
Anyway,
what are we looking at for a score right now on the
2-1 Providence? People are going to hate to hear this, but the general consensus around the league in management departments or higher is Cam Neely is not very bright. That's the consensus.
Lovely. Kevin, what about Ryan Mougenel as president?
Well, anybody can do better than Trump. I had to do it.
My first thought was, yeah, I mean, I bet you he could run the country pretty well, all things considered. But anyway, we're getting close, believe it or not, Dom, to 8:30. So,
yeah, I want to concentrate on the rest of this hockey game.
Real quick, MLSS says Sweeney's forte getting bottom six talent for a good price, which leads us to now Bruins have 3 lines made up of bottom six talent. They have some good talent in the system. Poitras's not bottom six. Liessel's not bottom six. Yelvik is projected not to be bottom six. Whether you put him in the middle or on the left, that's a whole other conversation. I agree with you, Dom. Better on the left. They've got plenty of guys who are developing into middle to top six. The problem is when you don't have high-level first-round picks, you have to pick project players. And it takes time to get them there. So, anyways, thank you all for tuning in. It is definitely getting late on our end. Normally, we end the show over 20 minutes ago, but given the topic of tonight, and we really didn't touch too much on the prospects, so real quick before we sign off, Dom, last question. Anything prospect-wise that we didn't get to that you wanted to?
Christian Kostadinsky officially signed his letter of intent with Boston College. Worst kept secret in hockey that that's where he would be going to school starting next year. So it is now official. How's that for a closer?
The only other one